Brown eyes are sad looking far away. You miss your mother. You remember the smell of hot kitchen smoke every afternoon in the countryside. At the right time, the wind chimes hanging outside the door slightly jingled. A woman walked in, bring some cold and moisture from outside. Grandmother little folding umbrella, and call lightly. Black hair is sponged tall neat. T revealed the high forehead and the delicate neck. She wears a plush navy blue work dress. Your body is still slim even though it is not young. Her face made up gently but incisively. The deep eyes furrowed with fatigue, but still exudes ineffable power. Mun quickly stood up straight, pulled back the dark brown apron. She came to the counter. The deep voice boomed, enough to hear amidst the melodious music. Give me a hot Americano with some sugar. Please wait a moment. The man politely replied, trying to hide the fleeting confusion. You've never met a woman. Study such a spatial atmosphere. Just go the way. Something just happened to fascinate you. Waiting for Nem to make coffee, she looked around the bar for a moment. And chose a single table hidden behind a tall bookshelf. She sat down. Put your handbag on the opposite seat. Pull out the phone, take a quick look. But the eyes don't seem to focus. There's an invisible loneliness radiating from you. There's a quiet sadness behind the perfect look. Mun can feel it. Maybe it's because you're also feeling lonely. Similar. Be careful placing the chup, hot Americano on the small tray. Walk towards her table. His heart beat a little faster as he approached. Soothing water smell. Her grace flashed through his nose. A delicate fragrance that you've never smelled before. Your coffee, please. He put his coffee down on the table, his voice trembling. At that moment, his hand accidentally trembled to make a small coffee stain on a plate. Oh, sorry, gentlemen. You're trying to get a tissue. She looked up at you. The deep eyes of unknown joy and sadness. He shook his head with a steady voice. No more wonder their eyes met in the moment. Mun feels his face hot ran. I'm so sorry. Andy then quickly walked back to the bar as if running away. But your heart is still pounding. The last look, even if it's fleeting. But there's something through. It makes you feel like you're being read. Mrs. Ip looked at the shadow of her thin back. The student just left. He's a pretty good-looking white guy. Gau's figure is ragged. Andy, the brown eyes have something very sad. You're awkward and somewhat timid awkwardness. It makes you feel interesting. It's been a long time since he met a young man. Seems real. Andy don't lie to be so smart in front of her. She took a sip of the slightly bitter land coffee. She looked out the window again. The rain is still white. The loneliness that surrounded her was thick and stifling. She sat there for a long time, just quietly drinking coffee and looking out the window. Sometimes he served the phone, but doesn't seem to mind. The man standing at the counter sometimes peeked at her. When you're curious about who that woman is, what to do when sitting alone in the rain, with such a worried face, you wonder if anyone's rich. Luxury. They all have their own beliefs that they can't share. Then she got up and took her bag and the umbrella. She walked to the cash register, put down a high polymer banknote. Isn't money. Your stomach is nem rushed to charge. My hands trembled when you received the money, and some warmth from her hands. You changed the chain carefully, put it on a small plate. She got the money but Andy said nothing more. Just nod and turn and walk out the door. The wind's bell is ringing again. When the door closed behind her, elegant flower water smell, still flickering somewhere in the air. Man stood there watching her shadow fade behind the rain. A strange, ineffable feeling rises in your heart. A woman with deep eyes. And the quiet loneliness, it's in your mind. Like a sad note, lost in the middle of the piano, melodious of tough afternoon rain, you unconsciously sighed. I don't know what I'm regretting, but maybe, you're just seeing a part of yourself. Only in that strange woman. Nem did not expect that the accidental meeting in the afternoon rain, that day was just the beginning. And since then a woman named Diep. The way you hear it. People called her on the phone, become a strangely familiar guest of the book cafe. You don't come every day, but the frequency of her appearance, Usually in late afternoons without guests, it is enough for men to carve the image of a luxury woman, with eyes that cast that worry into my mind. She still chose the single table hidden behind the high bookshelf, still ordered a glass of hot Americano with less sugar. It's like the smell of water. Sometimes when you pass by, to become something, almost periodically in the quiet space of the bar. I tried to be normal though. Still can't help but feel nervous every time I see a black car. Familiar parked in front of the door. Later service times I was less embarrassed. Sometimes Mrs. It takes the initiative to talk to you. It's a question with number beginning A and the number end. Boy student, what's the name of the book you're reading on the counter? She asked on a sunny afternoon. I saw him reading books in his absence. Yes. The man hurried the book. The Sadness of War. It's a good book, but it's heavy. She closed her eyes and he looked at him. Young people like you like to read that stuff. I think it's true. Nem hesitated. You're not very good at expressing your thoughts, especially in front of a stranger. It's a woman again. She looks as unpredictable as Mrs. She didn't ask anymore, just smiled. A smile that's almost unrecognizable. On lips painted. Deep red lipstick. Really, sometimes the truth. It's what people want to avoid the most. Those words made Nem sing forever. You feel like this woman isn't just rich, luxury but also has a complex interior depth. These short conversations just keep happening. Not often, but enough to pull close to the invisible distance between them. She asked him about studying at home, about the difficulties of living away from family. Her voice was always a little distant, but in the eyes, sometimes the light of sincere interest. She gets warmer every time she shows up. Interest, even if it is fleeting. A stranger, in this crowded city, it's enough to move you. He began to look forward to the afternoons when she came to the bar, looking forward to the indifferent questions. It's those deep, hard to understand insights, the initial admiration for appearance, and her temperament, slowly mixing up some strange vibrations, and you can't even name yourself. You know that shouldn't be unusual. But the immature heart of a young man. Sometimes they don't follow reason. The irregularities in the budding relationship. It's not just Nem who realizes. One afternoon, she went to the bar with a man younger than her. About the 30, wear a vest, elegant appearance, agile smart. He's carrying an expensive case. Follow Mrs. Ip with respect, but the eyes are sharp. Keep looking around. When Nem brings coffee to the table, you accidentally heard Mrs. Ye introduce the speaker. This is my assistant. The boss glanced at the man from head to foot. A look that doesn't hide. Then he turned to Mrs. Ip. The voice is small, but loud enough to be heard. This cafe seems quiet, boss, but a little unpopular. Mrs. Ip did not reply, just sipping her coffee. I feel a little uncomfortable with that attitude. But you quickly turn around and try not to care. But throughout the talk that day, you noticed the importance. Sometimes you look at the bar, where he stood, his eyes full of suspicion and vigilance. He talked business with Mrs. Ip, but the attention doesn't seem to be entirely focused on that. First time mala. Feel an invisible flow of tensile. It's about the relationship between you and your grandmother, but you're just a part-time student. She's a successful businesswoman. There's a huge age gap between them. Living experience status. Why does she care about you? And yet so, the key assistant was upset. Such a probe. These questions are stuck in my mind. It makes you feel confused and a little insecure. You start to wonder if you're delusional. Whether Mrs. Ye's interest was purely just the kindness of an old man for a young man in trouble, or there's something else behind it. After the meeting, there was a big face. Nam's attitude towards Mrs. Deep was somewhat more reserved. You're still polite, you're still serving, but not as natural as before. You try to avoid direct eye contact, answer your questions more succinctly. Mrs. Ip seemed to recognize the change as well. She didn't ask directly, but your gaze is a little deeper than that. There were times when there were only two people. She suddenly spoke in a sad voice. You seem to be talking lately. My startled heartbeats meet for an hour. You're stuttering. You're welcome. I'm going to take the exam, so I'm a little nervous. She looked at you for a long time, his eyes pierced through his clumsy shell. Then she breathed softly. Second-year students are under a lot of pressure. Try up. It was with her understanding eyes. Once again make the hat of Sao move. You feel like you found some kind of empathy. Rare but then reason pulls you back. You remind yourself of the distance between you two. About potential problems that you didn't anticipate. The relationship between them and Mrs. just drifting in the confusion. It's hard to predict that the coffee shop meetings are still going on. The short conversations continue. But there's always an underlying tension. There's something that can't be side floating between them. Nem has just been fascinated by the mystery of Mrs. He just feel insecure in the face of her growing interest. Andy the watchful gaze of his assistant. A boy standing between the lines of admiration, gratitude and a kind of vague feeling that's kindling. A feeling you know is wrong, but not strong enough to stop it. The days after that, self-reservations, it doesn't seem to change her habits. To the bar she still comes on empty afternoons. Still quality Americano hot little sugar. Still sitting in a familiar corner. Perhaps her patience and the equanimity. It makes men feel less stressed. Or maybe deep inside, you are still waiting for your presence. If the special woman. A weekend afternoon, Nem is struggling to arrange the stack of newly imported books. On the shelf near Mrs. Ip's table, carelessly he dropped a rather thick book on the floor. Right next to her feet. Uncle Nem jumped up and he picked it up. At the same time, she gave her hand to help him. Elongated fingers painted her delicate decorated nails, slowly gliding through the butt of Nam's hand. When you both touch the same book, a faint, numb electric current running down the spine of the souse. It makes you feel like you're in a hurry. I'm so sorry. Your face is flushed, your heart beats faster. He hurriedly picked up the book from her eyes. Mrs. Ip smiled softly. The smile was a little clearer this time. No more wonder. Be careful. She looked at the book in his hand. Architecture books. You study this? Yes. John holds the book in his lap. The feeling of shame has not dissolved. Granny, is it hard to learn? She asked in a soft, interested voice. It is also a bit difficult, especially when making plans. The boy replied. Well, you understand. She nodded, her eyes looking a little more affectionate. You look a little blue. Must eat well. Keep up with new health, keep up with learning. The sudden interest made Nem look up at her. My heart rises to a feeling of inexpressible warmth. Bah. It's been a long time since anyone asked Han how sincere he was. Apart from your mother in the countryside. He nodded, not knowing what else to say. But the days after, Mrs. Ip's interest did not stop at words. I once saw my husband lose his eyes due to lack of sleep. When doing late-night projects, she quietly brought a table lamp to the bed. Modern style, soft light. I see you have to work late. Use this for eye damage. Basta it put the light on the counter. It's a very normal thing to sound like. I'm surprised you can't accept it. This must be expensive. Empat is not worth much. Let's say I gave you a hardworking student. But smile lightly, do not reject the kindness of adults. The determination in her voice. It made Nem unable to refuse. You take the lamp of the emotional sprawl. I'm both grateful and a little confused. Mrs. Ip treated you well. Too much for a regular guest. Why does the question come up that makes you wonder? Another time when Nem was charging Mrs. Ip. Be careful with the change. When she reached out her hand, then their fingers accidentally touched each other. This time a little longer compact. He felt the warmth and the softness of her hands. He hurriedly withdrew his hand, but her eyes stayed on his face for a few seconds. A puzzled look. It's as if it's a little bit deeper. You feel your heart beating again. The breath also becomes hasty. But those delicate fair touches, even if it's fleeting, again stirs up Nam's mind violently. He began to pay more attention to her. You notice the way she frowns when she thinks, the way she sighed softly as she looked out the window, the way she smiles softly when she listens to a good piece of music. He realized behind the cold exterior, power is a soul. There are also hidden corners, sadness without a name, her interest in small gifts, accidental touches. All this made them feel comforted. Just getting more and more confused. Your mind tells you to keep your distance, that this relationship is so extraordinary, too dangerous. But the head doesn't stop fluttering. Before mere tenderness and the understanding that you get, you have tormented yourself for 5 years. Are you greedy? Are you taking advantage of her kindness? Are you really attracted to a woman who's experienced? This mysterious and powerful. You feel like you're walking on a rope. On the one hand is self-respect and safety. On the one hand is the sweet temptation of interest. And the things you don't even dare think about. Sometimes after a moment of closeness, suddenly you're deliberately being cold. Avoid the next day numb. But then, you just need to see her half-broken eyes. You don't have the hat. On an evening when the bed was close to closing, there's only name and Mrs. Ip. She sat quietly by the window, watching the sunset falling on the city. Suddenly she turned to look at Nem in a sad voice. Sometimes when you look at you remember my youth. A time when everything was possible, and the sadness is as clear as the summer rain. She sighed softly. The older people get, the more things they have. But the more you feel lonely. The wood crab. It's like a needle in the sauce. First time, Mrs. Ip reveals a little about her own beliefs. I don't understand why. He felt a deeper connection with her. An empathy that transcends the age gap. He wanted to say something to comfort her, but the throat is choking. Mrs. Ye stood up and put a thin shirt on her shoulder. Come on, Albeba, you can clean up and leave early. 3 steps to the door. The back is straight but tired. Malo looked under the heavy hat of thoughts. A table lamp she gave me is still on the counter. Soft yellow light. It's on your immature face. The face touches delicate. The hidden words. Unusual interest. It's all like invisible threads that are covering you. Drag you into a relationship. You don't know where the stop is. Nam's life goes on and on in the middle. Familiar turns of lecture halls and book cafes. But Mrs. Ip's presence enveloped it 1 gram. A strange color that's warm and restless. You try to keep the necessary distance. But her keen interest and the understanding eye. Sometimes it makes you weak. But worry about money. Learning pressure. And the loneliness of the foreign land. It's always a constant burden. On a weekend evening when Nam had just finished cha. Get ready to ride the bike. When he got home, the phone rang. It's a strange number that he hesitated to pick up. Hello Nem, right? It's Ip. Mrs. Ye's warm voice echoed from the other end of the line. It's a little bit different, compared to the conversations at the bar. Nem is a little startled. Listen, is there anything wrong with you? You never thought she'd call you. If you have your number, ask the owner. I'm near your bar. Could you please sit and talk for a moment? Just for a moment. Her voice seemed a little hesitant. That's a rare thing about the self-controlled woman. He hesitated, but it was too late and he was tired. But there's something in her voice. You can't refuse. It's okay. Where are you? I'm at the restaurant across the street. You pass. You wait. She sighed and hung up the phone without waiting for Nem to reply. The man looked at the phone. He looked at the old bike. The restaurant across the street is a luxurious place. You never dare to step in. You wear an old suit to work. The smell of coffee. Is it okay? But then he clicked his tongue. But must have called something. You lock the bike. Take a deep breath and you walk south. Brilliant crystal light. And the soothing music of in the restaurant. Make Nem feel lost. Mrs. Ip sat at a table near the window. Still with the usual luxurious appearance, but you look more thoughtful today. I saw Nem walk in. She pointed to the opposite chair. Ip, sit down. Man pulled the chair down feeling embarrassed covered. You don't know what to say. The waiter came. Mrs. Ip called for a glass of orange juice without asking. Thank you, young man. She stirred a glass of red wine in front of her. Look out the window, where the traffic is still rushing back and forth. A long time later she spoke up. A small voice like talking to yourself. The city is so big, but sometimes it's so cramped and so lonely. She turned to look at Nem with deep eyes. Don't you see that? He was a little surprised by the question. You nod your head. Sometimes you feel that way too. She was silent and he suddenly changed the subject. Have you been doing well in your studies lately? It's okay. Just, I'm a little worried about the next semester. Man forced his mouth to say. Indeed, and you regret my honesty. Mrs. Ye looked at him, her eyes showing no more emotion. The cost of architecture school must be high. She put down her glass of wine and he looked straight into Nam's eyes. I have a proposal for this guy. I don't know if you're interested. Nem looked up, his heart thundered for an hour. You have a bad feeling. I've been working a lot lately. Sometimes you need someone to go to dinner with. Some events are not too important. Or just sit and listen to me talk. Someone who doesn't belong in my world of work. She slowly watched Nam's reaction. This job doesn't require much. Just be present and listen. In exchange he can help you in part with your tuition or living expenses. It's a special extra job. If Nem is stunned, your hands are buzzing. What is Mrs. Ip saying? I want to hire you as a friend. You feel your face burning. Blood rushed to the brain. This offer, though softly spoken out, still makes your self-esteem suffer. Deeply hurt. I know you're just a poor student, but you don't want to sell yourself so cheaply. I don't think I'm fit. Nem bowed his face with a small voice. I'm just a student, not used to luxury places. I don't know how to talk either. I don't need you to know how to talk. Or being clever. Mrs. Ip interrupted her still calm voice. I just need someone to listen. A young person who has a different view of life. I see you added the person. But paused for a moment and then spoke more quietly. This is not a blessing, man. Let's see it as a fair exchange. You make it less lonely, I make it less difficult for you. Both are beneficial. If Nem is silent, Mrs. Ip's words sound reasonable. But you still feel like something's wrong. You that tore violently. On one side is self-respect, fear of an unclear relationship full of risk. On the one hand, the temptation is too great, an opportunity to escape from poverty, a chance to step into another world, and the irresistible attraction of this woman herself. He thought of his mother in the countryside struggling every day. Think of the nights spent awake worrying about school money. Your mother seems to read your mind. She didn't force me to just wait quietly. The prolonged silence. Just the sound of the laundry axe and the soft glass. Finally, after a bitter inner struggle, Nem raised your hoarse voice. I need time to think. Mrs. Ye nodded her face without showing too hopes or satisfaction. Okay, think about it. Let me know when you make a decision. She gave him a business card. This is my own number. The man received the business card. His fingers trembled. You can't look her in the eyes anymore. The conversation ended in an awkward atmosphere. Men rushed from, almost ran away from that fancy restaurant. Leave, Mrs. Ip sat alone with her unfinished glass of red wine. The restless man couldn't sleep that night. Mrs. His offer haunted his mind. You feel humiliated, but you can't deny its appeal. You hold the card in your hand, the gilded words glistening as if inviting, tempting you to fight. Should you walk down this road? Is the price to pay too expensive? But then the old mother in the countryside. The housing bills, the tuition, they're coming up. The next morning with dark eyes due to lack of sleep, shaky Nem dialed the number for Mrs. Ip. Hello, your voice is calm. Miss Ip, it's Nem. You take a deep breath. My grandmother agreed with your suggestion. The other end of the line was silent for a few seconds. Then Mrs. Ye replied in a softer voice. Nem. I'll pick you up at 2 tomorrow night. Hung up the phone and sat down on the bed. The feeling of emptiness enveloped. You know you've made a decision. You can completely change your life. But you're not sure it's the right way. But the next night at exactly 2 Banding no, the familiar black luxury car parked in front of the shitty inn, the end of South. He walked out wearing the nicest clothes he had, but still feel lost, compared to the luxury of the car. And the woman sitting inside, Mrs. Ip wears a charming black evening dress, makeup more thoroughly than usual. She smiled slightly when she saw him get in the car. The wheelchair. Take name to an old French restaurant, where the candles flickered and the rustling of the fish feathers. This is your first time in a place like this. Everything is strange, from the fancy dishes on the menu, to the complicated table rules. You're awkward. Just quietly do what Mrs. Ip suggests. The dinner took place in the aisle rather awkwardly. Mrs. Ip tried to start a conversation about light topics, about the art of music, but Nem only responded sporadically. You feel like a lost species. A piece of jewelry brought by Mrs. Ip. The glitter. The beauty of this world overwhelms you, but it also makes you feel more insecure and self-deprecating. When you realize, step into the world of Mrs. It's not as easy as you think. It requires you to trade a lot of things. It's not just time, it's about self-respect and the peace of mind. The first 4 dates. It's full of embarrassment and the awkwardness. Even though there is still a feeling, it does not belong to the distant world of Mrs. They start to adapt slowly, with his new role, but you learn to observe, listen and gradually recognize the underlying rules in the parties, the event that Mrs. Ip sometimes took him with. She often introduces you vaguely, is a young friend, and the name just smile, nodding hello, then quietly sitting next to her, play the role of a companion with few words. But what surprised Nem? That you don't get bored. As opposed to looking at the upper world. Listen to business stories. Set other complex relationships around Mrs. Ip that piqued the curiosity of an architecture student, are eager to learn about society. But more importantly, through these contacts, you start seeing another woman, a version that's hidden behind a cold shell. Powered every day. He realized that Mrs. Ye was not always strong, sat at times in the middle of a noisy crowd. He caught her eyes flickering tired, lonely sat at times on the way home late. She looked quietly out the car door. A thoughtful face that can't hide its sadness. Nem began to understand that wealth and the success are synonymous with happiness. Behind the glamour, there's a woman. There are also injuries, gaps in the soul, that money can't fill, full of divorced grandmother, living alone in a large penthouse. The children have grown up, and have their own life abroad. Work is the only joy. But it's also a burden that exhausts you. That understanding made Nem more open. You're not too shy anymore. I began to dare to share my thoughts. Although still a little nervous, I once went to an exhibition with Mrs. Contemporary art. You have boldly expressed your opinion about a sculpture that she's staring at. You see that the shape looks out of balance. But it's the imbalance. It creates a very special tension, as if it's trying to rise out of gravity. Mrs. Ip turned to look at you. His eyes flashed with surprise and then he lit up with interest. You're also interested in Sao art. I studied architecture, so I did a little research. My face is a little red. Keep talking, I want to hear your thoughts. She encouraged it. First time, I feel like I'm not just a follower. It's a real interlocutor. You talk about how you feel. About the intersection of architecture and the sculpture. About how the artist uses space and the materials. Mrs. Ip listened intently. Sometimes I nod my head. My eyes glowed at the same. From that day, the conversations between them became deeper. They discovered a surprising amount of common interests. And I love music trinduong. I love classic French movies. I'm interested in ancient architecture. She began to share more about herself. About the trip, her favorite books. Sometimes it's the sad memories of the past. Nem also talked about his dream. About desire, built buildings with their own imprint. If homesickness and the love for my mother. Mrs. It seemed to find something in the sauce. She was lost a long time ago. Sincere freshness and an intact soul has not been eroded by everyday calculations. When he was with you, he felt younger again. She started smiling more. The real smiles no longer seemed so distant. The way she looked at him also became warmer. Have evenings instead of going to fancy restaurants. She asked him to take her to the same eateries, the summer you told me about. Eat dilapan hot noodle soup, to hear the noise of the cars. Or sometimes she invites you up to the penthouse, not for a party, just to listen to an old song, watch a black and white movie on the big screen, one of those close moments. The space seems to overlap. Soft yellow light in the luxurious living room, music and two people sitting next to each other. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's empty talk. Sir I don't know more about physical touches, but the attraction between them is becoming more and more obvious. Through every eye, every smile, every moment of silence, I can smell her familiar water. I can hear a soft breath in my ear. You see your heart fluttering, a feeling that's both sweet and guilty. You know you're in a relationship. Go beyond the original agreement. A relationship where the appeal of the soul is slowly blending in with underlying physical desires. The woman also felt the change in the eyes of the South. Looking at her, the young boy's lovely confusion when they accidentally sit too close. She found her heart warming, a feeling that's long since cooled. But at the same time, she also recognized the danger of this relationship. She's the one who knows she's playing with fire. But the fire is strange. Warmed her lonely soul in a strange way. She wondered if she was rational enough to stop at the right time, or will let go follow the wave. Emotions are running high. Closeness to the soul. It increases the physical distance. Become more fragile. The evenings together, even if you're sitting next to a movie, it also makes the eye thick. Emotions without words. It's lie not to sink further. But the image of Mrs. Ye gently in silk pajamas, long hair on the shoulders, let it haunt you again. You know you're at a dangerous crossroads, where reason and the instinct are so fiercely entangled. The growing closeness between them and the Mrs., even if it's just deep conversations, are moments of synchronized silence, not escape the watchful eye of gravity. Assistant guy, be professional and polite in front of her, but every time it's just them and him. They don't hide their unpleasant face. And contempt. Once Mrs. E. Please help me with an important document. To her real estate company's office. Because the press is suddenly busy. This is Nam's first time at her workplace. You're overwhelmed by the luxury, modern and the size of the office. It's on the top floor of a central building. When he timidly walked to the front desk and beside Mrs. Ip's name, the officer looks at you from head to toe, then pick up the phone. The important thing is to calm down and pick you up. He gave a social smile, but my eyes are freezing cold. Nem. Right. Thanks for bringing the documents to the boss. Important to receive the document evenly. The boss is in a meeting. You can go back. Attitude of weight. You want to get rid of South Korea as quickly as possible. But at that moment the door to a nearby conference room opened. Mrs. Ip stepped out with some partners. She was surprised and smiled slightly. Nem, thank you for bringing it to me. She turned to the blend with natural voice partners. This is Nem, a very gifted architecture student. Help me with some errands from time to time, but the introduction is somewhat favorable. That made Nem blush, but it also feels warm. Hot, however. He caught the wait's piercing eyes looking at him. A look full of warning implications. Fast Jen in. Deep and her partner's attention was diverted to something else. Deliberately pushed Nem out of the conversation. Nem understood what he meant by quietly bowing and retreating. A feeling of unease and insecurity rising within. The guy clearly doesn't like you. And he's implicitly showing it. Men feel pressure from the suspicion of weight. It makes Nem feel scared. You're afraid this relationship will get out. Afraid of the gossip. Fear of affecting learning. And my future is in doubt. More than that, you're afraid of yourself. You're afraid you're really too deep into this relationship. Not just for money. It's because the complex emotions are growing. For Mrs. E. These thoughts make you miserable. After a particularly cozy evening, when Mrs. Ye opened her heart, Tell me about being lonely after a divorce. Andy Nam took her hand to comfort her. In a moment, he returned to his room in a heavy mood. You feel guilty. You feel like a coward taking advantage of me. The weakness of a woman worthy of her mother's age. The feeling is gnawing at you all night. Yes. Andy so Nam started the one-step strategy. You excuse being busy. Busy working on projects. To deftly decline invitations to dinner. Or attend Mrs. Ip's event. When she went to the chaff. You added deliberately busy. Ask your waitress. Avoid private conversations Nam. He replied to her message briefly. Colder than. The sudden change of Nam. That Mrs. Ip could not help but be disillusioned and upset. You're not a fool. You know that Nam is deliberately avoiding it. Several times she went to the bar and sat quietly for a long time. Your eyes are filled with wonder. As Andy heard. For a moment she said nothing. But the silence is heavier than blame. Nam saw that look, his heart tightened. You know you're making her sad. But you don't know how else to do it. You're trapped in fear. A sense of guilt and an undeniable vibration. You tell yourself it's good for both of you. That this relationship needs to end. Before it's too late. But cutting it off isn't easy. You have to take care of yourself even if you try to refuse. Still creeping into your life. It's a rare architecture book. You can't find it forever. Suddenly appeared on the desk at the bar. A tuition not suddenly paid. That you don't know. Nam knew it was Mrs. Ip even though she didn't say la. The silent kindness. It makes you more confused and confused. While Nam is struggling with emotions. My mess. The way it seems more determined. To separate you and your wife. He began to allude far away to Mrs. Ip. About the minors. About youth's vulnerability to exploitation. He did not forget to put more pressure on the spouse. In subtle ways. He met Nam at the school gate. Asked Hannah a few questions. But deliberately talking about the status gap. To the rumors. Not good if outsiders know about Nam. Words of importance. Like needles in self-esteem. The already fragile spouse. You feel angry but you're also scared. You know what you want. He wants you to disappear from her life. Andy maybe he's lied. This relationship was a mistake from the beginning. He decided to speak clearly to Mrs. It has to end. Before you can no longer control yourself. But every time you open my mouth, look into the deep eyes. But there's a hint of her loneliness. You don't have the hat. You're afraid of hurting her. Fear of losing a special connection. That you've never had with anyone else. You hesitate again. Andy continued to sink into the vicious cycle of tearing teeth. The days of struggle go by. Leaving Mala a feeling of fatigue and exhaustion. Pressure from gravity. Confusion in my own feelings. And also the fear of facing Mrs. Ip. It almost makes you want to give up. You even thought about quitting your job at the coffee shop. Completely cut off all contact. But at the right time, a major incident occurred. In Mrs. Ip's business. A real estate project. Important to have serious legal problems. There is a risk of complete collapse. Fastland news in the press. Accompanied by malicious speculation. Vietnam can read the restless hat. Now you know this project is important. How important to Mrs. Ip? You imagine a tense expression on your face. Her fatigue and unconsciously feel real anxiety. That night he received a message from Mrs. Briefly come stranger by penthouse with me but not Mala. Now. No more hesitation or routine hospitality. There's only one direct request. I am tired and need someone to be sir. Southern had tightened. Every thought about keeping your distance. About the warnings of the. About the sadness suddenly disappearing. You just know that. But right now, you need someone to listen. A spiritual rock and you can't leave her alone. He took a taxi to the luxury building where Mrs. The penthouse is on the top floor. The silence and the cold were different from the usual brilliance. The door is unlocked. Man gently pushed the door in. The large living room only turned on a few dim yellow lights. Balloons on the expensive tuju furniture. Mrs. Ip was sitting alone on the long sofa. With your butt to the door. Handle the glass but don't drink. She wears simple cream-colored silk pajamas. The usual high tufted hair has now been dropped off. Stretched out on slender shoulders. The shadow of her bed looked strangely lonely and fragile. Miss Deep name softly called name. She startled back. Her face no longer looked powerful. There's only fatigue in my eyes. I saw her smiling a wry smile. You're here, sit down. He came to sit down in the opposite chair. Keep a safe distance. But you don't know what to say. The air in the room is tight. Asphyxiation to difficulty breathing. One can only hear the ticking sound, the slit of the old watch, and the sound of the rain falls evenly outside the big glass door. Overlooking the city at night, the lights flickered. Mrs. Deep, is it okay? Nim finally spoke in a hesitant voice. Mrs. You shook her head with distant eyes. Not okay. Nim, everything is about to collapse. She sighed and held the glass to her lips but put it down again. Sometimes you wonder what I've been trying my whole life to do. And then finally, I am alone in facing it all. Her voice was something bitter and helpless. It was the first time I saw her so weak. You want to get closer. You wanted to do something to comfort her, but you couldn't. You just sit there quietly listening. The four women began to talk. The voice is flat but full of joy. She talked about the difficulties of starting a business, about the white nights, about competitors not from tricks, about the betrayal of the people she trusted. She sighed as if she'd been pining for so long. No longer seemed calm. Self-control is often seen. Nem just silently listened and he occasionally nodded. You understand that right now. You don't need advice or analysis. You just need someone to listen without judgment. The long story. Mrs. Ip's sadness also seemed to spread to the south. You love her. Laughed the strong woman. I'm struggling with the wind. You laughed the deep loneliness you always hide. When Mrs. You stopped her words, her eyes were red. She put her hands up and rubbed her eyes trying to calm down. I'm sorry you suddenly sighed so much today. No more. Nem sighed quietly. You can say, take it easy. She looked at him with a grateful look. She stood up and walked to the mini bed in the corner of the room. To pour more wine. But her hands trembled. The bottle almost fell out of her hands. Nem quickly stood up and walked to help me. The distance between the mist now narrow. I can feel the smell of water. Familiar with the smell of wine. From Mrs. Ip. You see some hair? Blurred on the forehead high. I can see the fatigue in the corners of her eyes. Your heart is beating again. A feeling of compassion, just as ineffable vibrations lies. He took the bottle from her hand and he carefully poured it into the glass. Their hands touched each other. No more. One pulled back this time. The warmth from her hand to his. A soft warmth. Your mother looked up at you. Her eyes no longer looked cold. It's just weakness and a little bit of a vague invitation. Thank you, she whispered in an almost whispered voice. Their standings are very close together, in the silence of the room. The rain outside seemed louder. Nem heard Mrs. Ip's gentle breathing. I can feel the warmth from my grandmother. But you want to step back, want to break the stifling air. But my feet are buried on the floor. Mrs. Yi's eyes kept holding him back. A grateful look. Just lonely. It just hides something deeper. You dare not look directly at. The distance between them is so small now. Just a small gesture. A quiet where all boundaries can be blurred. Man feels his throat is dry. Heart palpitations in the chest back. You know you're on the edge. And just a little breeze. You might fall down. The air is concentrated. He thought he could shoot it with a knife. Nem is still standing there, unfinished red wine bottle in hand, facing Mrs. Ip. Her eyes watched him not leave. Deep eyes. There is no longer any weakness to hide. Loneliness and a fire of longing has been kindled. The rain outside the window was getting louder, bombarded. It's like a heartbeat in your chest, both of you. A thunder rumbling slightly shook the large glass door frame. At the same time, all the lights in the penthouse went out. The darkness enveloped suddenly. There's only light left. It's coming from the buildings outside. Enough to illuminate the hazy shapes of two people. Standing quietly in the living room, Mrs. Ip lost power and Mrs. Ip whispered, The voice was a little panicked. This unexpected incident as a substance, the final catalyst, breaking down the fragile defensive wall that they're both trying to build. In the dark, every feeling seems to become more sensitive. Every distance is erased. Man feels his heart tightening. He could hear Mrs. Ip's urgent breathing, right next door. The familiar smell of water is now intense, more charming than ever. He put the bottle on the bar and he stepped back. But in the deck he stumbled and he almost fell. "Nem, be careful, Mrs. He reached out her hand reflexively and he grabbed the mala arm. Her warm soft flesh touches his hand. A powerful electrical current running along the male's body. It makes you stand still. You dare not move. Just feel it clearly. Each of her elongated fingers. I'm clasping my arm. Her breath fell on your neck. Strangely warm and he rushed. I'm a little afraid of the dark, Mrs. Ip whispered. His voice trembled like the first weak confession. Words with a fist that doesn't leave. As an implicit signal that breaks down all barriers, remaining in the south. You don't think about weight anymore. No more longer think about the age gap or status. You no more longer think about light. In front of you is a lonely woman. The weak need a shoulder. There's a warmth and a depth in you. A primal instinct is also rising strongly. Longing to be protected, to be close. You slowly turn around, facing Mrs. Ip in the dark. You can't see her face, only saw her eyes light up in the faint light. Shoved in from the window, your eyes are drawing you into another world. A world with only two people, where all the usual rules are meaningless. The hand that was holding Mrs. Ip's uncle's arm moved softly. Your fingers glide across your flesh, leaving a long trail of spikes. South trembling. You can't tell the difference, it's fear. Or the desire is growing. You raise your other hand. Then he took her hand. Her hands are soft and cold, but it's just as shaky as your hand. But they stood there, hand in hand between the darkness and the rain. The prolonged silence, but not as oppressive as before, which contains a waiting, a choking sweet tension. Nem heard his heart beating, pounding in the chest, the rain outside the window. Your breath also becomes breathless. You don't know who took the initiative first. The distance between them slowly closed. Man feels the warmth from Mrs. Ip's body radiating to her. Her fragrance enveloped him as strange and mesmerizing. He bent down on an impulse. The instinct is irresistible. His lips touched Mrs. Ip's. Her lips are cold from stress, but also soft and trembling to receive. An awkward kiss. Stopped at the beginning. It quickly gets deeper. More intense. The wine was still on her lips, blended with sweetness. The young boy's surprise. Form a taste of passionate passion. Man feels his mind spinning. All reason is gone, only instinct is leading the way. He put his arms around Mrs. Ip's waist, pull her close to my lap. Her body is soft and warm in his arms. He also put my arms around your neck, fingers creeping into your hair. Respond to the kiss with equal intensity. The sound of both of them breathing merged with the sound of the rain. Mrs. Yi's breath was getting hotter and hotter. Man's neck makes spikes running along his back. Your hands start to explore. The curves hidden behind the soft silk. Her smooth skin was warm under the palms of his hands. Each touch like a small spark that ignites. The fire of passion grows in both. Man feels his whole body hot ran. You're like a lost man, just found an oasis in the middle of the desert. Feeling both guilty and sweet. Both scared and excited. It makes your whole body shake. You know you're doing the wrong thing. One thing that can ruin everything. But you can't stop. You let go. Let the wave of instinct go wherever it goes. The same goes for Mrs. Ip. She closed her eyes. Feel the clumsiness but full of desire. Nem, how long has it been since you felt hugged? Like this. How long has it been since your heart started beating again? For a man. The loneliness. I've been holding on for years like I'm bursting in this moment. But no more matter what. No more matter the consequences. I just want to live fully with my emotions. They coaxed each other in the deck towards the long sofa. The thunder still occasionally. Wine outside Kia. Like a piece of music. Dramatic background for a love affair. The flashing lights outside the window. Sometimes it's clear. The two bodies are caught up in a great hurry. No more words are uttered. There's just a gasp. The fey a touch of flesh Andy the relentless rain. Mrs. It name amateur. It's like a first-time student in love. But it's immaturity. The truth was aroused in Mrs. More intense emotions. She gently leads you. Just like an experienced lover. Just like a gracious mother. She felt the shiver. The burning desire from the strong body of the young man. That night, in a penthouse in the heart of the city. It's raining. Two people belonged to two completely different worlds. We found each other in the dark. In the drunken leaven of passion and the loneliness. They've crossed all boundaries. Every prejudice. To live with raw instincts. The best of humans. One night it entered my head. One night that both name and the Mrs. It knew that, after dawn, everything will never be the same again. The fire has been lit. And it's going to burn everything. Or warm them up for a while. No more one can predict. The darkness is receding. Give way to the grey light. Thanks to the dawn, the will crept through the large glass door. The night rain has stopped the rain. There's just a little noise on the eaves. And the sky is red in the distance. The electricity has not returned. In a luxury penthouse, the silence enveloped. It's heavier and more oppressive than the darkness that's just gone. Ibnem sat in a corner of the sofa, trying to pull the crumbling shirt off at her body. You dare not look directly at Mrs. Ip is sitting at the top, quietly put on a silk cloak. Her long hair covered most of her face. Last night between the intoxicating leaven of passion and the enveloping darkness, all boundaries seem to have disappeared. But now when the soft morning light shines, the naked truth of the wrong relationship, this one is clearly visible. It left both of them feeling embarrassed. Confusion and a vague fear is growing. Mrs. Yi didn't say a word to anyone. Mrs. Yi's soft sigh broke the stifling silence. She reached out her hand and put her head behind her ear. To reveal the face is still tired, but has returned to its usual aloof coldness. Her eyes glanced at him. No more the weakness or the invitation of last night. It's just unpredictable complexity. Man felt his heart throbbing. You know last night was a moment of weakness. A momentary indulgence of both. Now when reason comes back, the distance between them exists. Clearer than ever before. You're a poor student. She's a successful businesswoman. This relationship, it starts with empathy. Or any kind of heartfelt vibration. It can't have a good ending. Feelings of guilt and shame come back to you. I think you should go. The boy spoke in a hoarse voice. He stood up and he hurriedly adjusted his clothes. Mrs. Ip didn't look at him, she just nodded. The voice is unemotional. You go home. The coldness in her voice make them feel down. What are you waiting for? A clinging word? An explanation? Or just a warmer eye? But nothing. There is only shame between them now. And a secret. Can't put it into words. He bent his head and he walked quickly out the door, unable to look back. When your hand just touched the doorknob of the cold metal, the doorbell suddenly rang out. Both Nem and Mrs. Ip shut themselves. Man's heart wants to jump out of his chest. Who comes at this hour? Mrs. Ip frowned. His face a little confused. Then quickly calmed down. She motioned for Nem to stand still. And then you go to the doorbell screen. Through the black and white screen, the face of the lock is clearly visible, with an incomprehensible half-mouth smile. Miss It. Mrs. Ye picked up her voice trying to keep it natural. What happened to you so early? Good morning, boss. The heavy voice echoed through the loudspeaker. It sounds calm, but it's ironic. He brought over some documents that need to be signed by the boss urgently. With last night's rainstorm, he don't know if the boss is okay, so he don't want to go to the bathroom. Sauce at sauce pounding. The words you hear are very normal. But the way he pressed, smiles and these smiles on the screen, make them have bad feelings. Does he know what happened last night? Ip was silent for a few seconds. My eyes are a little confused. I'm fine. You wait for me. She turned off the camera and he looked at Nem. The face has become tense. You go to the bedroom in there. Wait a minute. Don't come out. Nem understood what he meant by hastily sneaking into the nearby bedroom. Close the door. You're standing behind the door. Tim's pounding against the wall. Glide to listen to the outside. Mrs. Ip took a deep breath. Adjust the robe. Glide to get your face back and you open the door. Come in. She sighed in a cold voice. The kid stepped in. Take a look around the living room. The eyes stopped very quickly at the sofa. It was a bit messy to look at Mrs. The smile is still on my lips. The boss seems a little tired. He must have lost sleep last night due to the storm. What to do with you? Mrs. Ye quietly walked straight to her desk in the corner of the room. The document is not here. He signed it. The boss is not in a hurry to deliver the documents. He lazily walked closer to the sofa. Pick up the empty glass. There's some red wine on the floor. Mrs. Ip has not been able to clean. Looks like the boss had a pretty interesting night. He put the glass up his nose and he smelled it. I'm sorry I'm not here to share with you. Mrs. Ip turned back her piercing gaze. What do you mean? Shrugging the glass down on the table. I just feel weird. The boss doesn't like to drink alone. Especially on a stormy night. He approached Mrs. Ip lowering his voice. Or the boss isn't alone. Mrs. Ip stood with a white face. She tried to keep her voice calm. What the hell are you talking about? Don't forget your place. He laughed softly, a cold laugh. He pulled out his phone, opened up a short video. The man in the bedroom couldn't see the screen. But you can hear the urgent breathing. The quiet moan came from the phone. That's the sound of last night. Mrs. Ip was dumbfounded. Her feet seemed to drop down. She looked at him with unbelievable eyes. You're scared and you're angry. I just accidentally recorded it, boss. Turn off the key and you put the phone in your pocket. Security camera system. Why is the boss's house so modern? It automatically records to detect strange movements in the deck, especially when the power goes out. His smile became even more terrifying. I just want to keep my boss safe. Man stands behind the door. His body is freezing cold. You hear every word of importance. He knew it all. He had the evidence. It all broke down. Extreme fear and confusion enveloped him. You feel like heaven and the earth are falling in front of you. What do you want? Mrs. Ip finally regained her voice. Even though she trembled, she knew she had fallen into the trap of gravity. I don't want much, boss. They wear a fake social smile. I just think the boss. I should reconsider my next vice president. I find myself quite fit. He glanced toward the bedroom where Nem was hiding. And maybe, the boss should also let the Kia student know what to leave. This relationship, it's not good for the boss's image at all. 3 blatant threats of weight made Mrs. Ip clench her teeth. The hands become power. She felt humiliated, angry, but also helpless. She had grasped her fatal weakness. The career reputation she built her whole life can melt into a cloud of smoke just for a laid-back night. And in another year, this young man is going to die if this gets out. The air in the penthouse became heavy as lead. There was an imbalanced confrontation between Mrs. Just getting started. This is Nem. He stood set in the darkness of a strange bedroom. You know the high cost of secrecy. And the trembling of a dim future. Full of uncertainty just arrived. The short night of passion is over, leaving behind a grim reality, and the unintended consequences. After the weight left, leaving an air of tension and the threats hanging, can penthouse sink into heavy silence. More than ever, Mrs. Ip stood motionless by the window, rigid MacBo, eyes on the city that awoke after the night rain, but you don't seem to see anything. The humiliation, the anger and the fear that swirled in her heart. It made her almost breathless. He slowly opened the bedroom door and he came out with a pale face, a bewildered look. You heard it all. All illusions about a special relationship, even if it's fleeting, now completely shattered by the harsh reality. You're just a pawn in a game of power. And the ambitions of people from other worlds. A piece can be abandoned at any time. I'm sorry, Nem stammered in a sinful voice. It's because Mrs. Ip's granddaughter is back. Your eyes are a little complicated. Andy quickly returned to its inherent coldness. She shook her head in a delayed voice. Andy, it wasn't his fault. It's my fault. It was too subjective to weak. She turned away. I don't want you to see the chaos in your eyes. She walked back and forth in the living room. My mind is spinning with thoughts. The weight has caught her. An assistant she used to trust who supported her. Now it's back to bite her cruelly. He wants the position of vice president. What money and want to get rid of Nam? Who accidentally interfered with his plan? Or simply the one who made him feel threatened? Mrs. Ip is faced with a grim choice. Or she gave in to his demands. In exchange for silence, keep your reputation and the career that she had to sacrifice her youth to build her. Or you're against it, but the cost can be everything. Laudo company, image collapse. The future of the world will also be destroyed. Fidel Kia. If released, it will be one. The terrible scandal. She drowned her Andy, this young student. She looked at the young man standing there trembling and afraid. But in the eyes there is still a clear light. It's not clouded by everyday calculations. You two have a future ahead of you. An unfinished architectural dream. You can't because of a moment of weakness. It ruined your life. This relationship shouldn't have been there from the beginning. It only brings trouble and the hurt for both of you. A painful decision, but definitely formed in Mrs. Ip's mind. You have to stop everything immediately. You've got to push the Southern family out of this dangerous cycle. It protects you from yourself and from yourself. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress all the emotions that are surging. She turned to face Nam, the ice-cold face. The voice is no longer warm. Man from last night, forget it. It's just an accident, an unintended incident due to circumstances. She spoke every word like a knife to her heart. But the eyes tried to be indifferent. There is nothing between us. And there will never be anything. You understand? Nam looked at her in shock. A sudden chill in his voice and the eyes. She made you die. You can't believe it. This is a woman who was weak last night. Still warm in your arms. You feel like you've got cold water. Straight into the face. You said that. Why did you stutter your throat? I mean, you should know where you are. Mrs. Ip sighed. Her voice became more and more harsh. Intentionally hurt you, so you can definitely leave. But you're just a part-time student. Did he happen to know? Our relationship just stops, sir. Don't be delusional. What he helped you with before. As the best of times. We should never see each other again from now on. Every word of Mrs. Like the needles that pierced Nam. You feel pain, shame and the anger. You feel like you've been taken advantage of and disrespected. All the empathetic warmth he'd ever felt from her. It's just a lie now. So that's all there is to it. Nam laughed bitterly. Tears began to fall. You see me as a temporary distraction. Why? If you want to think that, it's up to you. Mrs. Ip shrugged her shoulders, trying to be indifferent. Even though your heart is hurting, whatever it is, it should end here. You are young and you have a future. Don't waste time on relationships. Not going anywhere. She took a stack of shoes and put them on the table. As compensation for this misunderstanding. Take it and go. Don't ever show up in front of me again. Mrs. Ip's actions were like drops of water overflowing with glass. Man looks at the money on the table. Then he looked at Mrs. Ip with deep hurt eyes. You didn't say anything. Just quietly turn around and walk quickly out the door. He didn't hold the money or look back. The door closed behind you. Leave. Mrs. Ip stood alone in the cold living room. 2 lines of tears finally rolled down my cheeks. See, walking like a dead man out of a luxury building. The early sun is shining. The road is still wet after the night rain. But your heart is dark and cold. You feel empty and empty. Life is budding even though wrong left and full of left. It has also left you with true emotions. Now it's all cruelly over. You were angry at Mrs. Ip. I was angry at myself for being so naive, delusion about something impossible. You understand that your world and your world are so different. They can never fully intersect. Mrs. If he walked around the street, I don't know where I'm going. The cold image of Mrs. Her bitter words haunted his mind. When you feel hurt, offended, but somewhere in my heart you have a little regret. You're sorry for the synchronized conversations, sorry for the understanding eyes, sorry for the brief moment of weakness that you felt from that woman. But you realize, this complicated relationship has left in his heart a scar that is hard to fade. From that day, Nem never went back to the bookshelf again. Please stop cutting off all contact with her. Now you're trying to bury your head in your studies, into unfinished architectural projects. Try to forget everything that happened, but the image of Mrs. Ip, her sad smile, and all that fateful night of rain, sometimes they come back in dreams, leaving in unbearable sadness. You know your life has taken a different turn, a more bumpy and thorny direction. After that brief but tumultuous meeting, 2 years passed like the blink of an eye. The city is still buzzing. The spinning wheel of life is still hurrying people away. Nem is now a final year student, about to graduate, and your life is much more stable than before. After leaving the cafe, Andy completely shut off from her. You found a part-time design job in a small architecture office. The work is hard. It requires a lot of gray matter and time, but true to your passion, Andy bring in enough income to cover your living expenses. Even sometimes, it can send some money back to my mother. I see you've grown more mature after the events of the year. Seem timid. Self-doubt has been replaced by self-confidence. A young man about to enter life. But somewhere in his quiet brown eyes still harbors an ineffable sadness, an invisible scar that time can't completely erase. Sometimes when passing a familiar road, there's an old book cafe. Your heart is aching again. You don't go to the bed anymore, you just walk by quietly. It's like going through a part of memory that's both sweet and bitter. Sometimes you accidentally see her picture, it in business magazines, or on Tika Nam. Still with the luxurious look of power and coward, she still succeeded, still standing at the top of the house. I heard your company. We've just overcome a major crisis. Andy, it's on the lies. The post of deputy director belonged to someone else. Not important. Nem doesn't know how important she has solved. Maybe with money or power. But you don't care anymore. The world is so far away from you. Every time you see her picture, the memories of that fateful rainy night, about the short-lived closeness, about the harsh words that followed, come back and make your heart explode. You're not mad at her anymore. Maybe you understood something, the reason for her actions that day. Maybe she did it to protect you. But the regret is still there, smoldering like an unhealed wound. You're sorry for a bad relationship, sorry for the true vibrations, has been buffeted by harsh reality. Andy misses it. Her life continues. Source of work, meetings, fancy social parties. She used her skills and the experience to overcome the crisis, to strengthen the position. He was quietly removed from the company. No more trumpet, no more drum. No more one knows the reason. Just know that, assistant guy, her ambition had disappeared from her sight, but she lives alone in a large penthouse. Cold, strong appearance. Self-control is back. It's like there's never been a moment of weakness, but only you know. That rainy night, he left a void in her heart. It cannot be filled. A student with sad eyes. Genuine awkwardness and the warmth. Complaining in the night. Sometimes they come back. Tormented her mind on quiet late nights. But sometimes she'd stop by the old bookshelf. Still sitting in the familiar corner of the table. Still ordered a hot Americano with less sugar. She looked at the empty chair. I feel a sadness without a name. She never saw Nem again. Maybe it's best for both. But she still wonders if you're now Rasau. Is life less difficult? Do you remember her? Or have forgotten like a nightmare? He got up and he walked out of the cafe. It leaves behind the smell of old books, and the melodious piano. Outdoor, the sun has gone up Chao Hong Dulai Road after last night's rain. The city is still bustling. But in her heart there still seemed to be a smoldering rain. Persistent, not knowing when to stop. Laugh on the left. This short time has become a secret, a burden that both you and them will have to carry. Like a lingering afterglow of mistaken use. And the unspeakable loneliness of old age.